I have breaking N-word news. Yeah. Trump called someone on The Apprentice, the TV show that really created the image of Donald Trump, a completely fake image of Donald Trump. The Donald Trump that you saw walking in slow motion from the helicopter with his name on it, walking in slow motion to the limousines. He was really an image created by Mark Burnett. That's been detailed. It was detailed even before the 2016 election, but people really swallowed the profile created by Mark Burnett on The Apprentice. So on The Apprentice, there was a lot of stuff that happened, of course, behind the scenes. They're rolling the whole time, and apparently Donald Trump used the N-word in relation to the show's black finalist. The Trump word was used in conjunction with a conclusion that Trump had reached, which was, even though it was the first season of The Apprentice and this black person had reached the finals, Trump was dead set against this person being crowned the apprentice, the victor. The details of this are now coming out in ways that they couldn't before because the NDAs that were originally signed have expired. Isn't that essentially what's happening, Kim?
Say again?
The contestant in question was Kwame Jackson.
Right.
A black Wall Street banker who worked at Goldman Sachs. In the final episode of season 1, Jackson was pitted against Bill Ranchich, a white entrepreneur from Chicago who owned a cigar business. They were tasked with managing 2 separate events at Trump properties. This may be something that you guys remember. This is the way the Apprentice was set up. They give them tasks. And then Trump has that fake board meeting. They talk about it. It's all staged, although the interaction and reactions can be authentic. And in this case, you can look at Trump's comments off the air to see clearly that this is a guy who felt the white guy should win. I mean, sadly, you have to make it.
He said, and this is a direct quote, but I mean, would America buy a N-word winning?
Right.
And apparently there's audio tape of this somewhere, which has not been released. But the thing is, I feel like even though he likely used the N-word, and even if we had it to listen to on tape, no one cares. No one cared when he, without consent, said he was feeling up ladies in the private regions. No one cares when he offends Latino people on Cinco de Mayo. No one cares when he's a racist or when he's angry or when he's telling people to stand back and stand by or whatever it was. He's got the weirdest thing going on where he gets away with stuff that no one else could, and I don't really understand why.
Well, I mean, it on some level is a reflection of the country. I mean, I would suggest that you can start there, But I also think that this guy has his own bizarre charisma. A lot of people like to hear him smack talk, and they put all of this in the sort of the bucket of smack talking. Now, as Kim has noted, there is audio of this, and the reason there's audio of this has to do with the fact that The Apprentice was a game show. In other words, people were eliminated and they were on their way to win something if they were not eliminated. And because of that, there are very strict standards and practice rules that are in place. You can't tell Donald Trump as a producer, and Trump, of course, is a producer on the show as well, who you think should win, what would be best for the show. But you can have meetings, backroom meetings with Trump, and that's exactly what they had. And during those meetings, there is a recorded aspect to it, so it can be memorialized, again, for a lot of legal reasons. And it was during one of those meetings that he made those comments that Kim is talking about. So the I'm just reading the story. The Daily Beast has got some great stuff on this. While discussing Jackson, he was the Wall Street banker who worked at Goldman Sachs. While discussing Jackson and Rancic's performance, there was subtle advocacy in Jackson's favor. One person said that she'd seen Jackson overcome more obstacles in his task than Rancic did, especially in the way that he managed Omarosa. Remember Omarosa?
Oh, yeah.
I think Kwame would be a great addition to the organization, said someone outright to Trump. But that's when Trump is described as having been wincing multiple times while listening to this stuff about Kwame Jackson. And then the comment. It was on the heels of some of these positive comments about Kwame Jackson. Why didn't he just fire her? Trump asked, referring to Omarosa. That's not his job, one producer responded. That's yours. I don't think he knew he had the ability to do that. Yeah, Trump conceded, but I mean, would America buy an N-word winning? The rest of the room was stunned by Trump's casual use of the slur, and in the recounting of this, they all were trying to struggle to process what they had just heard. The guy who is telling this all is saying that he was shocked that Trump was serious and very direct about selecting Jackson as the winner, and that Trump seemed to have no reservations about letting the N-word fly in a meeting that he knew was recorded on tape. Over the years, several people who have crossed paths with Trump have alleged that they heard him use the N-word, including Omarosa. She wrote it in her 2018 memoir that there were multiple instances during the filming of The Apprentice in which Trump was caught on tape muttering that word. Mark Burnett, who owned the outtakes to The Apprentice through his production company, which is owned by MGM, tried to dodge public calls to release the tapes back in 2016. In a joint statement that year, as you're looking at a picture of Kwame Jackson, who was part of that finals competition against Bill Rancic, in a joint statement that year, Burnett and MGM said that it was MGM's decision, restricted by various contracts, whether to release the outtakes. So Burnett's saying, hey, I don't know, talk to MGM about it. Despite reports to the contrary, Mark Burnett does not have the ability to the right to release the footage or other material from The Apprentice. This is the statement. So the new disclosure from the world of The Apprentice appears to be the first time someone in Trump's proximity both claims to have heard him use the N-word and alleges that there is evidence to prove it, the recorded evidence to which Kim has referred. Of course, Trump says the recordings don't exist, and he never said it. This is a classic Trump play.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't do it. And then when the tape is produced, if it's ever produced, there's an explanation of some kind. The tape was doctored, etc.
Don't we look at past behavior and realize that this is, in the same way that we all know he slept with Stormy Daniels and we all know he slept with Karen McDougal, we all know that the chances of him having used the N-word are highly likely given his racist background, right? I mean, come on. He didn't do it. He's better off just saying, you know what? If I did it, I'm very sorry. It was not a word I use all the time. He's better off coming up with an apologize to the community situation, because no one buys that he didn't actually say it. Do they?
I don't know if you can apologize your way out of this. I think you're right that nobody believes he didn't say it, but I really think that this may be a tough one to apologize your way out of. That's just my thought on it. But you know, again, as I mentioned, the Justice Department sued Fred Trump, who's Donald Trump's father, and they sued the Trump Organization, and they had to get a settlement. And his father promised not to discriminate. That was a case that was settled, and Trump then countersued the government, which is what he does. But that case, the countersuit was dismissed. But I mention it because it was over racial discrimination. He wouldn't rent apartments to African Americans. And he made sure that people who worked for the Trump Organization understood that policy. That was the policy, the express policy of the Trump Organization. So there's a history here, and his comments and his outlook consistent with that history.
Yep.
It's sadly true what Kim is saying, which is, in the end, I don't know that it moves the meter at all. No. There is a cult of personality around this guy, and there's also a cultural divide, which is associated with law and order and immigration and all of these things that have been, I think, amplified unfairly to suggest somehow that Donald Trump, our Lord and Savior, can make this better. And it's for those reasons that people are ready to overlook some of the most heinous stuff. I mean, the grab them by the pee stuff, come on, man. You cannot overlook that. And yet, America did. A portion of America did. And now, the N-word stuff. But last thing, as Kim says, we're not surprised. We know this is real, right, and we know he said it. But we already know that he is a philanderer, he pays people off, he doesn't pay off contractors, he doesn't honor contractual obligations, he sues, he countersues, he had to pay a $25 million settlement to Trump University, which was a total fraud. He is a grifter. We know all of these things. So he's a racist, I get it, but you know, he'll shut down the border, he'll get stuff done, but he uses the government for his own purposes. He enriches himself and his family, the closest advisors who wouldn't even pass a security test, a security check on all of these advisors from his family who he wanted to create essentially positions that would have access to top secret information, classified information. They didn't pass the background check. Trump Bigfooted it. It's like, yeah, I know, but it's him, yeah. And his daughter accompanied him on a trip to China to get her trademarks approved. I mean, and she got it during an economic summit.
Any of these things would have derailed any other candidate.
His cabinet members, 3 of them resigned for corruption. Wilbur Ross, the Department of Commerce secretary. The Department of Commerce secretary didn't divest from his many investments, which he is obligated to do. And then when confronted by press, thank you, free press, asked about it, he said, oh, I forgot. I thought we did that. I thought I divested. All I'm trying to say is America looks the other way. This is a man who is in a dead heat with the incumbent president, Joe Biden, and has myriad legal issues, many of which we'll get to in hour 2.
Crazy. He's
still talking out of his rear. He's clueless, but he is serving up the BS like a short order chef, and America is still eating it.
What is it Dennis Quaid said the other day? I know he's an a-hole, but he's my a-hole.
Exactly.
Everyone knows, even the people who support him. And they like it. They like that he's a criminal. They like that he bucks the rules. They like all this about him. And so in this very rare case, I don't think the N-word, that's tame by comparison to everything else he's done and said. You know?
Certainly on policy and some of those things I just detailed, you should, I think you should take a meeting on that. And you can, but the N-word reflects an outlook of this guy that we knew about. The S-hole countries. Why do we meet with these people from S-hole countries? And they're all African countries. It just, And there are people who would probably hear that and go, yeah, I don't understand why we do meet with them. I mean, it's sort of, again, there's part of this rap that resonates with part of America. Trump said, I love the uneducated. Yeah, that's, I mean, he was doing his thing where I love this, I love that. Ron Cook has a thought, and I don't think it's a bad thought. That's why we know it's not really about religion or abortion or morals of any kind. That's just cover for racism and low taxes and regulation. I think that there's a lot of truth to what Ron says. I really do.
I would throw in misogyny as well. Yeah.
Right. Clearly, that's right. I mean, misogyny, in as much as it's a vote for the patriarchy, which you can say is misogynist. I mean, I understand you could say it probably correctly, but that's an old world view of women. So I don't know. I don't mean to split hairs over the word, but misogyny and patriarchy, I get it. They're adjacent to each other, but that one doesn't necessarily. You could say, hey, you can't subscribe to the patriarchy without hating women in part, right? So maybe you're right. Anyway, point is, it's a very old school view of things, and it's astounding to me that this man, with all of his baggage, can be running ahead of Joe Biden in so many places. But that's where we are. And I like that this has come to light in the Apprentice world, that world of that hit TV show. I like it not for necessarily just the N-word and the revelations about him using it. And by the way, these were out there before the 2016 election. And as I told you, that history that he has within the Trump organization of, expressed racism as a policy has been out there too. But I like that it's a reminder of image over reality. The Apprentice was an image. It played into the creation of a profile that was completely phony. So I told you once before, but I'll mention it again. My friend ran NBC, ran NBC Entertainment. He bought The Apprentice. He's the one who greenlit it.
Wow.
And I talked to him about it, and he said, I did not buy it for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a mess. We knew he was a mess. We knew that it was all, but I bought it for Mark Burnett. He said, I knew Mark Burnett would make it work. And you know what? He was right. Mark Burnett created the image of Donald Trump, the image that we have of a successful billionaire, a successful businessman, meeting in the boardroom, evaluating people's work within the show, you're fired, etc. It created a completely fake image. Phony.
So we owe the problems of America to Mark Burnett?
Yes, absolutely. And, Jimmy Kimmel said that as much. Yeah. Remember when Jimmy Kimmel was hosting the Emmys? He said, so we've got you to thank. You've got Mark Burnett to thank for all of this. The image of Trump that so many Americans have, completely created by Mark Burnett. And by the way, The Apprentice was a great show. It was a great show. I used to never miss an episode. Loved it. But I loved it as entertainment. It's like watching Wheel of Fortune or something and going, I love that Pat Sajak. I want him to be president. Dude, he's hosting a game show. Yeah, but the way, he's in charge. We need somebody in charge. Anyway, that's the situation with the breaking N-word news of the day. And there's more Trump and more legal revelations. We'll do them in the second hour. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.